What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Inside Bitcoin Spaces with Jason and Andrew.
What's up, Jason?
What's up? Today is Friday, July 10th, 2026. Bitcoin block height 957,438. Bitcoin USD price 63,858 US pieces of paper. Andrew, welcome in. How you doing today?
Doing fine, Jason. How you doing?
I'm doing good, thanks.
All right.
So we're climbing a little bit, up to 63,000 now. Things
Price is
looking a
coming
little
up. At least
good.
we're not in the 58K club anymore.
Yeah. Well, I'm still kind of hoping that we go down a little bit. I want to get a little more.
You want to do a little more stacking. Oh, that's good. There's that meme. It's like, keep stacking. And then it's like, the other guy's like, with what?
Yeah. I know. You run out. Have you seen, so there was this video that's going viral right now. It's like an Elon post from late last year where he talks about Bitcoin is energy, money is energy, like the new currency is going to be energy.
Yeah, he's sounding a lot like Michael Saylor there. You ever watch enough Michael Saylor, you'll get his whole analogy. Like he's got 100 analogies for what Bitcoin is like. All right, Manhattan real estate, kind of blah blah blah. But yeah, I think it's interesting that kind of this is coming up. I mean, energy is like a big topic right now with the war in Iran, this Strait of Hormuz. Like, what happens when you choke off reportedly 20% of the world's oil supply? You know, do the prices of barrels go down? We probably all saw the maps of like all the tankers like making a beeline to the Gulf Coast here of the U.S. to like, you know, get more oil when they couldn't get through Hormuz. But then this morning, I'm like, you know, the talks are off, the talks are on. There's more bombing, there's more of this and that. So, you know, it's and then the effects. You know, it's commonly stated that's like, when you have cheap energy, that's just generally prosperous, no matter what. It's like if you're in a region of the world where you have cheap energy, then, you know, the native population can do a lot with that and produce things and become more prosperous. It's like the poverty levels and the prosperity seem to be correlated pretty tightly with availability of energy and kind of resources. So, yeah, you know, we would all like to see prices go down. You know, they say, well, okay, energy, and that's trucking costs, that's transportation costs, that's like cost of inputs of production. So anything that's got oil as a, you know, base element, plastics, etc., you know, all sorts of pharmaceuticals and various things, you know, should not right away, but they should come down in price. You know, with the availability of more cheap oil, but we'll see. This kind of takes a while to play out. And, you know, people like, oh, well, you know, maybe the interest rates will come down a little bit. But then it's like, well, yeah, we would have to have negative interest for a while to get prices to really come down.
Yeah, so they're never coming down. Prices are never coming down. So what Elon actually said is, his exact quote is, energy is the true currency. And he said, this is why I said Bitcoin is based on energy. So he's saying energy is the true currency, not fiat currency that we all use, because any one person or group of people can create fiat for free. Energy, you can't just whip it up and create it. It requires real world assets. And Elon is saying that energy is currency and Bitcoin is backed by energy. So Bitcoin is energy, and it just takes energy that we can't cheat. We can't cheat energy, puts it into a digital form in Bitcoin, and that's what we can use as currency, use as money peer to peer.
Yeah, this is like one of the main kind of mental leaps that is really tough for people to kind of get into, and it took me a long time to kind of get my head around it. I think reading Software by Jason Laurie was added to it. I mean, if you read Bitcoin Standard, you read, Jeff Booth's book, Price of Tomorrow. I mean, they all talk about this, but it really is an astounding technological leap to be able to basically harness the power of energy in a digital form. I know that seems abstract, but it's like, the fact that the only way to get a block for the Bitcoin blockchain is to, you know, use electricity to run ASIC miners to then, discover a block. And while that's kind of seems kind of arbitrary, it's like, well, this is the rule, the protocol. This is what we have agreed to, and if that block then effectively represents that slice of energy that it took to get it. And there's no one doing it. There's no reversing it back to the energy it came from, right? So this is kind of the purest expression of what any hard money is. I mean, people talk about gold and silver and platinum and oil and commodities, right? It's like as base money, as like, sound money or hard money, they say. And it's like, yeah, while there's gold and like you can say, oh, well, but we can like mine more gold. Yeah, we can find more gold. Yeah, true. So you can expand the supply of that base asset, um, but it takes work. It's like, I don't know. Have you ever been to a gold mine? It's like,
No, I've seen pictures though. It's like, yeah, the holes that they dig.
yeah, I when I lived in South Dakota as a kid, we went out and people are familiar with Mount Rushmore, like the faces on the mountain, right? If you're not American, uh, then there's those mountain range where that is also home to some gold mines that have been in operation for like hundreds of years. And we went out there. We were out there vacationing once, and we went and toured the Home State Gold Mine. And as a kid, I was probably a teenager, like preteen or something at that time, like probably 14 or something. And I'm like, in my mind, we're like, oh, we're gonna go visit the gold mine. I'm like, okay, great. I'm thinking like Snow White, right? Like the little gnomes are in, the little miners are in there, and they've got a tunnel, and there's like nuggets of gold, and they got picks, and they're like, picking the chunks of gold off the wall and putting it in a bucket and then hauling it out. That's in my mind. That's what it was all about. Well, you go in there, and it's like, well, first off, we're gonna take you down. I don't know, it was like some four stories down underground to like one level. So like it seems like a long way. It's like, oh, this is like 1/20th of how deep that the actual mining happens at. So like, man, they got to go really deep. And then they're like, okay, now see all these ore cars? It's like, yeah, okay. And they're full of these like gray rocks, like these gray black rocks. And if you pick up a rock, you look at it, and if you look really close, you can see there's this just teeny tiniest little like flecks and shards of that kind of reflect light. You're like, it's got kind of this super fine, like glitter, like surface appearance to it. And they're like, that's the gold. And like, what? It's like, yeah, we have to like mine and bring up to the surface like 10 tons of gold of this gold ore. We got to like, and then they took the tour to the other parts. Like, then we got to put it through these crushers, these huge machines that roll this stuff around and crush it down smaller and smaller, like different machines that like take the ore from like big rocks down to smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. Finally, it's like dust. And then they take that and they put it in these big vats, these big holding pools, and like as a sludge, and they put all this nasty chemicals, arsenic and all this other stuff in this thing. So these things are just like toxic pools. And they say, okay, then we put all these chemicals in here and we stir it up and we wait for a while, and then because gold is dense, it settles to the bottom, and then we strip off all the sludge, and then we take that gold, where the gold is, and then we have to go to these other refining process. And it really, it really gives you a good idea just how much work and energy and effort it takes to mine gold. So, they say, you know, they have the base cost that, that it takes to mine an ounce of gold. And it's not too much, under what the actual cost of gold is. It's like, and especially things like when you've got to run equipment around and drive all this equipment with gasoline and oil and diesel and stuff, or electricity to run this equipment. It's like that's a lot of cost and energy, and it really kind of gives you an appreciation for like, yeah, okay, we can always mine more gold, but it takes a lot of work. So anytime your base sort of metal or currency or thing that you're using as money is like just freely available, then it doesn't really have the property of money very well. So, and we always, fantasize Elon Musk. It's like, oh, we'll just like, there'll be an asteroid out there that happens to have a big concentration of gold, and we'll find it and we'll like lasso it and we'll pull it close to Earth and we'll mine all the gold out. And then suddenly, like, gold won't be worth anything anymore. It's like, yeah, well, all of that you just described is a bunch of work too and effort. It's like you got to build a rocket, you got to go find the thing, you got to like, figure out how to, you know, either mine it in place and then bring the gold back. And then how purified is it? Is it like, globs of pure gold, or is it stuff that has to get now crushed and mined and refined? And, you know, it's like, so nothing is worthwhile that comes easy. Right?
Yeah, exactly. It's all that
So,
work that gives it its value and the rarity of it. It's rare. It's
exactly.
not abundant. You can't just grab it somewhere easily. You have to work to go get it. Now, what do you think would happen, or do you think it's even possible that gold could be created in a lab somehow? Like recently, we came out, or I've been seeing a lot of these lab grown diamonds where they have pressure and however they make it, but they're making real diamonds. They're materially identical to diamonds that are created in the earth. So, do you think that's possible perhaps with gold?
Well, that's like, the the alchemist dream, right? From back in the
Yeah.
Middle Ages, the medieval ages, like, oh, these alchemists were trying to turn lead into gold. Um, I know that the synthetic diamonds are supposed to be quite good, and the whole diamond industry is based on like kind of artificial scarcity because in my mind, because the De Beers family basically bought up all the natural resources, and they have an incentive to kind of keep the mystique high of owning diamonds, but and then the supply low, such that they can always command a price. I mean, we but yeah, that's growing the diamonds. So, when you see things like that, you say, well, is creating gold from a lab in a lab process, you know, is it possible? Maybe. Um, I saw recently that there's a company that's building a fission reactor, not fusion, right? Atomic fission, which is the same process that the sun uses, right? The which is like instead of having this like nuclear material like um, you know uh, uranium, let's refine through a very hard, long process to refine uranium down to a grade where it'll actually start fusing in a reactor. It's using, I don't know, some sort of like helium isotope or something to create a fission reaction. Well, I mean, that the biggest problem with that, it seems to have been like, how do you contain that? It's like when you get like imagine grabbing a chunk of the sun and bring it to Earth. Like, how do you contain that in a way that allows you to like get more energy out of it than you put into getting the reaction started? And that's like maybe a byproduct of something like that is like, well, for suddenly now we've got such a high heat source that's controllable, we can introduce some other materials and basically, you know, use that to like break the bonds and reassemble them in a way that would effectively create gold. But again, it would have to use less effort and energy to create it that way, this mythical new way, than it would to just dig it up out of the ground, grind up the rocks, and distill it out and refine it. So it's not that it couldn't be done. Is like, is it economically feasible to be done? So yeah, we'll see. I mean, I'm not gonna put it out of the realm of possibility, but again, it's like you got to like look at the equation of like how much effort, time, money, energy did it take to get there, including all the research, all the investment, all the equipment. There's a lot. So
Yeah.
we'll see. For now, gold is still, there's a reason that the Bank of International Settlements considers it a tier 1 asset.
Yep.
They know something about it.
Gold, right. Gold is still good for now. And who knows, maybe it will be good. It requires a lot of energy to get gold. So if we know, based on this discussion and things that we know, we've read, we've seen, human interaction, things that we've learned, that energy is currency, energy is money, and Bitcoin is backed by energy. It takes a lot of energy to mine Bitcoin, the similar way as it takes a lot of energy to mine gold. What would you think of this critique that I heard from Peter Schiff? So Peter Schiff made a critique of Bitcoin saying that, yes, it takes a lot of energy to make Bitcoin, but it's a waste of energy because you can't pull the energy back out. It's just the energy suck, like a black hole where you put the energy in the Bitcoin, you get the Bitcoin, but there's no way to get the energy that you put in out.
Yeah, I mean, if you followed Peter Schiff, you know that he's been a an antagonist to Bitcoin for forever, and people like to like pit him up against the types like Michael Saylor, and get him in interviews and have him like battle it out, and these things never they never seem to be resolved, right? There's never a clear winner when they debate gold versus Bitcoin. But I don't know. I think it's kind of frivolous sort of statement to make from Schiff's perspective. I mean, throw it in there with like, oh, only bad people use Bitcoin. It's the mechanism of thieves and lawless folks and terrorists and stuff is like another FUD. I think it seems that the awareness of what Bitcoin is and the impacts it has is starting to spread further, right? It's like he wouldn't care so much if he didn't think it was a threat.
Right.
And we see more, we see governments that are investing in Bitcoin. I mean, obviously El Salvador has a big stake in it, but it's getting more and more woven into the financial, structure of our systems. So there's not going to be any easy extracting it. Is the quantum threat real? I don't know. It's like, I don't tend to think it's a very pressing problem. I think people try to use it as another like way to scare people about Bitcoin, or, oh, what happens if you just turn off the electricity and then Bitcoin goes away? It's like, well, yeah, but turning off the electricity is kind of a hassle for a lot of other reasons too. So, it's like, is that your argument? Really? So we'll see. I don't know. I don't take much credence in his statement. I mean, can you turn gold back into energy?
Well, I think, yeah, I guess you can't really turn it back into energy, but you can melt it down and turn it into other things and use it for other things. But yeah, you're right. If we lost energy or electricity, right, we would have major problems. Just think about it at night when the houses are all off, there's no lights on. I mean, it would just be chaos. People would be breaking into homes and just rioting in the streets and setting fires. It would just be madness without electricity. That's how far we've come as humanity, or maybe That's how reliant we've become on electricity, that if we ever lost electricity, Bitcoin wouldn't be on anyone's mind. And gold wouldn't be either. You know, you would need food, shelter, weapons, things like that. You wouldn't need money. You would trade instead.
Yeah, yeah. Have you seen the movie called The Road?
Now,
Oh, it's one of these. I don't know. It's probably 20 years old now, but it's like one of these near post-apocalyptic movies where this is kind of what the world is reduced to. It's like there's some big firestorm thing that occurs and wipes out a lot of stuff, and so the survivors have to pretty much just you know move around, find resources, trade, and of course there's a lot of bad intentions that are out there as well. So I think even Mad Max had like kind of that situation was like there was kind of an economy, right? You could buy and sell gasoline and trade things around to get what you want. Anyway, people, I'm a big fan of these post-apocalyptic movies because they just kind of give you a glimpse of like its potential near futures. Anyway, yeah. So what else we got going today?
yeah, it's definitely very interesting. All right, next up we have Radar.Chat. So a new chat launched by the team at Cake Wallet. It's a Signal fork that adds self-custody Bitcoin Lightning payments.
Yeah, so I saw this and it kind of perked my interest a little bit. Didn't look into it in a huge way, but did they do they have some sort of like how do you identify other people? Well, basically what they're saying is, look, when you're talking to someone, when you're exchanging information between people, especially one to one, like we're doing now, right? It's like there's a there's a good probability that if you want to engage in some sort of trade with them, then why should you have to like get out of one app and get into another app just to facilitate some sort of payment, right? So why not just do it all in the same place? You've already identified the other party, and because you're talking to them, so it makes a lot of sense that that would be possible, and it kind of eases the whole like how do you know and how are you sure that you're sending, especially with Bitcoin and these cryptocurrencies, because there's no undo button, right? So it's like having confidence that you're sending to the right person is a real thing, and people have gotten scammed and made honest mistakes and like lost significant money. So this is, I think, uh, it's kind of surprising nobody's come up with something like this before. I mean, it's like seems like this would have been kind of figured out before, but hey, all to them for kind of putting one and one together. But it does like kind of raise the question, like, well, what if you're not talking with that person and you still want to send them some money? How do you know what their information is? Do you have to kind of always like a lot of times these wallets they use QR codes to kind of communicate what who the other party is or the details, because the addresses are just too ungangly, right? They're these long strings of digits and letters, and you can't expect a human. And as soon as you try to transfer those things electronically, then you open up yourself to security. You're basically leaking your privacy to an extent. Now you might say, well, that's my public key and I don't care. That's fine, but still, it's like it's a record of that you engage with another person in a way, if it's somebody's watching your communications. So by kind of combining Signal and the transfer of money, that's pretty good. But it could be better. Like could be better maybe with Spaces, right?
Yeah.
Like, hey, my Spaces name. Maybe you've established that as something that you commonly associate with yourself. Then you've already got the mechanism built in. However, there is, there's an important caveat to that, and I think we'll get to that in a little bit here.
Yeah, so it uses, I believe it uses the phone numbers from Signal, so you can copy over your own contacts and everything. So it's still connecting you KYC, I guess, in a way, because it has your phone number attached. I guess you could go through routes and get a burner number, perhaps, but it's still also using Signal servers, from what I understand. So it has some sort of centralized risk where if a court orders Signal to give up data, it's not as private as we might think. And that's really where I think Spaces can come in, where there is no phone number, there is no court order that could get in the middle of it. It's simply Bitcoin and Spaces protocol.
Yep. Yeah, I think it does, limits the number of entities that could be, brought to bear if a government was interested in, like, curtailing something. So, I mean, we've seen this with Telegram, we've seen it with Signal. I saw an article that in the UK now uh, that they're really, well, I guess that an EU thing more than just the UK, that they have this chat control, which is like under the guise of like protecting the kids from, like, bad stuff. Well, in order to enable it, they're going to basically have a process on your device that watches everything that you're receiving and sending. Well, that all happens pre the encryption, right? I mean, when you Signal, you type in, you type in with English language, sentences. It's only when you hit the send button does it encrypt it and send it. So while it's secure en route to the other device through, of course, Signal servers, I guess, it's like, and then when it gets to the other side, it gets decrypted and then shown to the user. Well, if after the encryption and decryption, you're capturing it in some other routine way, then you're effectively disabling the whole premise of what Signal is about. In fact, I heard that Signal may threaten just to pull out of the EU if this really comes to pass. So we'll have to see where this goes. But it's concerning that these governments are like passing regulations that are really curtailing our privacy and our, what we can use. Thank God we have things like Nostr to fall back on. But even Nostr has, it's not the perfect solution. It's better. It's at least there's a viable alternative out there. But we'll see where this goes. I also saw, what was it? There was something else related to this. It was that I think somewhere else where Signal was potentially going to get banned. But anyway, we'll move on.
Yeah, Nostr could be good, but Nostr also has the flaw NIP05, right? So Nostr could be better with NIP spaces to get rid of all that DNS, ICANN, the third-party certificates, and all that. So really,
Yeah.
to get through this then, you're saying that it encrypts on the way there, so in transport, but beforehand, obviously it's not, and afterwards it's not, it's decrypted. So to get around that, what would we need? A specific device that doesn't enable these scanning tools or have some sort of connection? I know there's a Graphene OS, maybe a different operating system on the hardware. Would that help?
It's I think a big open question. Like, how far is the government's going to go? Like, so say you put this into law, and the likes of Apple and Google, the producer of Android operating systems, say, okay, well, in order to be compliant, we have to put this back door effectively into your phone. So those are the two major players. So what happens to like you say, the de-Googled phone operating system producers, the Graphenes, the Calyx is one I use. It's like, does it extend to them? It's like, Will they go rogue? Will they kind of refuse? Because if they have to do it as well to be compliant, then, you know, what's the enforcement side of this look like? If you're caught using a phone and the cop says, okay, like, show me what operating system you're using. And if you're using a non-sanctioned operating system, will they arrest you? I mean, there's also companies that are emerging. One's called Purism, that is building their own hardware phone to make it more private. And I believe, I'm not sure if they're working on their own ground up operating system or not. Again, you can do this, but then if the government says, well, you have to put this like backdoor into that, even that, then it's like, well, what's the point, right? If if everything you can possibly use has to be backdoored by the government, then you really don't have any privacy.
Yeah, I think this lends itself to the whole open source topic, where that's why open source is so important. The code needs to be open source. Everybody needs to be able to see the code. That way we could see if there's any backdoors or any vulnerabilities in it. That way we could all take the code, and if you are inclined to do so, you can edit the code. You can make your own thing. The more people that we have making their own code, and especially now with AI tools, it's a lot easier than it ever was. We can edit the code in ways. We could ask the AI chatbots to help us with the code, and we can make applications for ourselves, software for ourselves. And I really hope that that's the way things are going with open source code.
Unless the model providers put guardrails into the LLMs that prevent them from being able to make that kind of code.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, even the LLMs, even that the AI chatbots have to be open source. Everything has to be open source code. People can make it like GPT for all. I think it's open source. You could use that. It's application. You don't even need the internet. You could load your models there and talk to it. So there's a lot of things that are going. It's like a battle between the central controllers that want to narrow humanity's use cases and the things that we can do, and open source that wants to extend it and allow humanity to flourish.
Yeah, at the end of the day, with all of this, talking about all this, the real thing is like, people gotta like at some point resist what's coming down the pipe.
People have to want it, right?
Yeah, and I think the problem that exists now is that the awareness that your privacy is getting chipped away in meaningful ways that can't be easily undone, right? Like, I mean, you can like when the YouTube like kicked off all the conservative voices, like, the mantra is, oh, just go build your own social media system, like, that won't censor you. Well, easier said than done. And even if you do it, it can be very difficult. So it's not always at some point, it's not always possible to like, bring up an alternative, technology or system to replace or avoid the state sanctioned one. I think we've got the start of some really good alternative things, but if no one's using them, then it would take probably a pretty significant crisis of privacy before people like open up their eyes and say, oh my God, I got to find something else. So yeah, we'll see. But encourage people to like to look and research this stuff and like, yeah, be aware of what sort of changes are coming.
Yeah, you make a great point there. Not only is it a technical problem and a thing with the closed source code, open source code, and all these things that are happening, it's also a psychological brain thing that's going on where the humans, the public, have to be convinced to do this thing. Do you even want to do this thing? Is it good for you? So we have this battle between technology that's coming out that's helping us advance ourselves, open source AI, things like that. We have central rulers that are trying to narrow it and control it. And we also have a psychological battle where those same rulers perhaps are tricking the people or convincing the people why their solutions are best. Use our tools and all this, where the open source, the tools might be there. We might have all these things like Bitcoin Spaces, Nostr, open source code, all types of stuff. But if people aren't using it because they're not psychologically prepped, persuaded, convinced, then it's all for nothing.
That's right. That's right. So, it's, I wouldn't say we're at 1984 George Orwell yet, but it's not something that's inconceivable anymore, right?
Right. Yeah.
It's like you see the eventual creep against your privacy, then you can imagine, a more restrictive regime that's going to try. And people, they want to control. They want to control us. So, what can you do? Build alternative systems, build parallel systems, I think is probably the best shot at this point and the best way for people to kind of think about it.
And market it, persuade, convince, however possible. So now with this Radar.Chat that we were talking about, they added Lightning payments to Signal. What about Orbi Chat? So we have Orbi Chat that uses spaces, NIP spaces. Can we use Lightning payments in there?
Well, not yet, but I think we can see a pathway to it at some point. So if you're interested, we'll take a look at the some of the stuff that exists today and kind of take a look at where this is going and see how it kind of would maybe fill out a little bit of this picture. So I'll share my screen here.
Okay.
All right. So you can see it?
Yep, we can see.
All right. So this is the main Explorer for Spaces protocol. But if you go to the docs, the main page, spacesprotocol.org, then you see this page, and it goes into all sorts of discussion about what Spaces is and how does it work. If you kind of scroll down here, you'll get to finally where it talks about the cert relay. So this gets into how do you know information about a certain subname, and we won't get into the whole top level name subname thing, but assumedly that you have a subname like this one, Alice at BTC, like how do you get information, extra information about it, right? And that's where the cert relay comes into play. So if you're interested in this, there's this button up top says get started. If you click on that, it says, well, if you want to play around with this without having to go through the process itself of attaining a top level name, which requires spending some Bitcoin, going through the 10, 11 day process, and then setting up a system to manage the subname issuance, which you can do. And for those that are interested, I recommend you go through the process and play with it. But if you don't want to go through all that, you can just grab one. So what they've done is they took and made up 100 million effectively just random names. And they're all based on this form, this Genesis at key. So you can basically grab one, and then once you've done that, and you can kind of click on this button if you don't like those names. They all start with A at the moment, but you can imagine any number of them. Anyway, once you've done that, you can do a couple things. You can, and I haven't really played with this too much, but you can claim on Orbi. I'll go ahead and click that. Is it working? All right. So I'm not going to sign in with Nostr at the moment.
So if you signed in with Nostr, it would tie your npub from Nostr to the Spaces name?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if you're new here, it just creates a whole new npub. Is that correct?
Yeah, I believe so. So basically this is another way to grab the name. So I'll pick one here. They give you a few things. Acquire rice.
Acquire rice middle. Okay, not bad, not bad. So it's going to pair with this
So,
npub. Okay.
so publish identity pairings to make this mapping verifiable. So we'll click. So maybe I'll, yeah. So it's basically created the npub version of my thing. And now I can go. What do I do? I can actually start chatting right now, can't I? So
No,
like,
I think you have to join a station. Or maybe you can start chatting.
oh yeah, if you haven't joined any stations, pick one of these to get started, or hit dial in the sidebar to create your own. We'll just tune into this one. So now we're basically joining a Noster relay, and we can see other people. What's up? So I can start chatting here. All right. So
there's a question in there. There's a question in there. Is there any comparison between Orbi and Keybase? What's Keybase?
I'm not familiar with Keybase.
Oh, all right. Me either.
Anyway, so yeah, you can start using it. So it's tying these things together, and it's doing a certain amount of setup for you. But if we go back, let me go back to, instead of, I kind of jumped ahead here. Let me do this again. If we go and pick this method, account planet cable, set up manually.
See, names are important. Even though it's a 3-name shuffle and we're looking for names, we're still picking. We're still picky.
Yeah.
Names are important.
Yeah. So what it's done now is kind of like giving you the manual path, right? So I picked this name, account planet cable, and it said, hey, and when it created all these 10 million names, it created like not only the names themselves, but also 10 million secret keys. And even though they generated it, and obviously because they generated it and now they're giving it to you, you can't be sure that it's all, that they wouldn't use this in another way. So I wouldn't, for instance, start sending money to this particular address because you don't know who else might have it, the private key. This is why you always want to create your private key yourself. But for this demonstration, what I'll do is I'm going to hang on to this. I'm putting my little notes over here off screen so that in case I need it.
Now, when they talk about rotating your keys, what is rotating and how do you do that?
Yeah, that's kind of one of the weak spots of Noster and even Spaces to an extent. Although there is, when you take a key on chain, there is a way to kind of rotate it. But yeah, because you're using a single original key pair, and you're not using a derived key by and large, there is no rotating the key. So you got to be very careful about how you use it, right? And actually, that gets to a point I want to like get at or touch on here in a minute. So I saved my my secret. Of course, now that you've seen the secret here in this video, you're gonna.
Now it's no longer a secret.
Yeah, no, there's no hiding it, right? So unless we go back and blur it out, but that's all right. Don't worry about this. I'm not going to use it in any meaningful way. But what you can do is you can, so there's this .space cert, which is kind of a little backup as well. I'll go ahead and save that just in case I need it. And click on this record editor. So basically what this is saying now is like, okay, this is now we're interacting with the cert relay. And we say, okay, we got this name, but there's nothing about it that is per se interesting. I can use it in the chat like we just did and associate things. But what if I wanted to just use it in a more raw form? So what you can do is use this editor, and again, it was through that button if you forget, and then you can add records. So each set of records has a sequence number, and they are in an ascending order. But you can say, well, maybe I want to like associate a Bitcoin payment address or a Lightning payment address. And this gets to your point, like how would you integrate Lightning? So what we can do is we can create a record that exposes, that stores in association with this subname a Lightning address or an Ethereum address or anything other address as well. But just because we associate it with it doesn't mean there's any client that's functionally using it. So that's yet to come. There's a lot of ecosystem build out that needs to happen. But for now, let me just start with something simple. So other things that are identity related, just general stuff. So say maybe I want people who they know me as Account Planet Cable. You know, they want to know what my website is. Okay, well, let's click website and let's say, you know, my website is, I don't know, I'll make something up, you know,
Google.com.
planetcable.com.
There you go. Like Planet Cable.
All right. So then if we scroll down here, we see what the record, the JSON version of the record is going to look like. So it's going to be this kind of formatted. This is the first sequence. Now I get down here and it says sign in broadcast. So it's already loaded my certificate here in this editor. And it looks like, yeah, it's already put my key in. Now, if I had come here just without coming from that link, it probably wouldn't have seeded my private key. I'm going to like look at it here for a second just to confirm it's the same one. Yep, it's the same one. So I hit sign and broadcast. And it says it's successful. Okay, great. Well, what's happened? Well, this record now has been broadcast to the cert relay network. So that means that anybody that is using that as a source of identity can now can see that information. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go hop over here into my subs interface. So this is the subs interface. I've got a bunch of names here, but I'm going to go to the query function. I'm just going to paste in that thing. And if I hit resolve, so this service running on my machine is talking to the cert relay network, right? So I hit resolve and it says, okay, well, I found a certificate at the top level at key name. So this is the information about that. Within that, there was a subname called Genesis, and that's great. We knew that. And within that, there was actually another name, and it's, you know, notice it says sovereign. That means it's found an anchor that's associated with this. And they're all using the same anchor.
Is that the block height, Bitcoin block height?
Yeah, this is the block height that the anchor appears at. So the commitment is actually this thing. All right. And if I scroll down a little more, you can see now here's the fully resolved name. And if you go down here to this toggle thing, it'll give you the raw response. So I'm going to hit that, and then basically this is the same stuff that we were looking at above, but if I scroll down into the details, we can see here's my record type.
That's cool.
Right? And it's the first sequence, and it's a text, and it's the key is a website, and here's that website, planetcable.com.
That's really cool.
This tells me that if for instance, imagine a browser that understood this resolution mechanism, then I could just go in my browser and I could go literally open up, say there was only one website, I could just go boom and hit enter, and it would give me that website. Now, it's not going to work now because this resolution is not built into Chrome yet, maybe one day. But effectively, that would be the case, right? You could just find it, or maybe there's maybe initially, probably more likely, it'll be a custom browser that understands how to do spaces names. But any valid space's name that has a subspace associated with it and a website associated with it could do this, and you would go. So then that's again not depending on DNS. That would be just the spaces mechanism. Now, one thing I did want to kind of mention, I'm going to go back here and scroll back up. So one thing came up recently, kind of we talking about this signal or this new program that did messaging and payments together. And this came up about probably a month ago, where somebody was playing around with Nostr and said, "Oh, hey, by the way, your Nostr address is actually a valid Bitcoin on-chain address. It's just a different form of the same thing. And wouldn't it be cool if you could just send Bitcoin to somebody, say, they had a podcast and you liked what they were saying, you say, oh, I'm going to send them some Bitcoin." Well, that sounds great. And yes, indeed, they would be the only person that would be able to spend that Bitcoin. But it creates a new problem, and that is you now have some identity in a person that is well understood and known. And just like you and I, people see our face. I mean, yeah, we could be using assumed names. If maybe you're not really Jason and I'm not really Andrew, but and that but we're actually somebody else, but which is fine. But I mean, obviously, it's hard to hide my face. I mean, there's things about my activity that would maybe lead to where I live, who I am. And if people can put an identity, and this is why people, a lot of times in the Bitcoin space, you'll see people speaking at conferences and they'll be wearing sunglasses and hiding their face, because they know that, they are, they could be targeted, for nefarious reasons. And what people have to understand is, like, when you're doing this, what you're doing is you're creating a pot of money, Bitcoin, with an identity, a person. And it's kind of like wearing a big, fancy gold Rolex or something. It's like at some point that thing, initially it might be a Swatch or a Timex, a little bit of money. But if more people contribute to that, everyone knows, just by knowing your identity, they know how to look on chain to see how much money he's got stashed there. Well, even if you move it to another address, they can track that. So that doesn't help you. And if there's enough value, you might be a target for being robbed. And so there was a big kind of a bunch of dialogue online about, like, how this is not a good idea. People on Nostr will use Zaps. Zaps use Lightning to do a similar thing, and Lightning kind of breaks the anonymity or the traceability of the source and origin. So it's kind of creating that level of indirection. And so they were saying, just don't do this. It's not a good idea. It's not that you can't, it's just not best practice, right? And it creates safety concerns for the people receiving the money. And so I think the same thing here we have to keep in mind. See, we have identity. So I mean, these other things, identity, you're doing identity and identity. So it's like, okay, yes, my Spaces identity and my Nostr identity and maybe my decentralized ID identity, I want people to associate those things. I want that connection to be understood. But there's no monetary value associated with those things. When we get into payments, any of this stuff, there's real monetary value. So again, you just want to be careful. Other things that are informational, obviously, it's up to your discretion, whether you want to have a website associated with your subname or not, or something else. But I just say be careful. Now, there is something that helps, that allows the mechanism of people to, like, donate to people that they appreciate. on an on-chain way that breaks this this sort of dependency and linkage, and it's called silent payments. So it's an on-chain thing. It's a new sort of variant of the protocol, but it's a way, and only certain wallets support this. And I hope that Spaces wallets will support this in the near future, because what it does is it allows the payer and the recipient to coordinate and get a new address dynamically every time a payment is sent, even though the address that was publicly announced is always the same address. So imagine if you're like, an indie rock band and you want to put up a poster that says, hey, scan this QR code and send us some sats. This would be the perfect thing to do, because you could, reuse that same address, because every time somebody tries to send to it, that in the background on chain is actually using new address. So you've got that separation of addresses. So the mechanisms exist to kind of make this better. It's just that we're still in early days, and a lot of this hasn't been knitted together yet.
Yeah, silent payments would be great with Spaces, because then you could use your Spaces name at Andrew, at Jason, and if it's silent payment, it keeps going to a different address. But one way to mitigate this right now, let's say someone does send you a Bitcoin on-chain payment. You're a Nostr identity person, public figure, and people are just sending you money, right? That's like a great problem to have,
Yeah, I suppose, yeah.
Could you take
Don't have that one yet.
We're waiting for that. Could you just take that Bitcoin on-chain, send it to a Lightning address, then send it to another Bitcoin on-chain address? Would that mitigate and help with the privacy?
Sure, it would, because, the attacker could say, well, I knew you had this much Bitcoin at some time. And you're like, yeah, I did, but
So
I sent it to Lightning. I spent it.
I spent it.
It's,
Right.
it's like, it's kind of like the strategy of having like an account or a hardware wallet or something with a small token, well, a modest maybe amount of Bitcoin on it, and then having your real stash somewhere else. So then if you get attacked, you say, well, here's my hardware wallet, here's my key phrase, and I'm not, you might think that I've got a bunch of Bitcoin, but I really don't. And when they get on there and they see, it's like, yeah, well, there's some Bitcoin here, but not that much. Like, I fell in hard times. So I decided to sell my stash and pay off my house, or, whatever your story is, it gives you some deniability. Right. And, but if you have that big stash sitting there in a single address that's associated with your identity, then there's no hiding it. It's like, again, part of the Bitcoin network is that it's public. Everybody can see the same thing. So.
Yeah. And this is really cool. Look at all these things you could do. So you could tie all these different things: websites, email addresses, Nostr npubs, Bitcoin addresses, Bitcoin Lightning addresses. All these things you could do, really cool, can tie to a Spaces name. Now, about cert relay. So let's say, as we just did here, we tied cert relay to a website. How volatile is cert relay? Does the information stay forever? Does it have to be refreshed? How do we keep it refreshed? How do we change it?
So yeah, it doesn't stay forever. I believe that the timeout period is 48 hours. So the information needs to be refreshed. And the reason for that is that when, you can imagine, as the client ecosystem that's consuming this gets built up, if you make a change, well, the systems might cache the old answer. So there needs to be a way for things to expire such that you can change them. Otherwise, you would never be able to change them. It's like, oh, I misspelled Planet Cable. Like, too bad. You might as well abandon that name and use a different one. So there needs to be refreshed. And so right now, the infrastructure for kind of having somebody do that for you, you can do it yourself. You can use this interface, come back in and just, re-add it again or add it. But that's kind of manual and pain in the butt.
Yeah.
There is a mechanism, just to kind of for completeness. If you take this subname on chain, you then get a UTXO that's bound to it. At that point, you can then set records on chain associated with that UTXO bound to this name, and then it's on chain. So then you don't have to worry about updating this stuff anymore. But most people probably won't go to that extent right away until they start understanding how this stuff works. But otherwise, you would need some sort of either engage with some sort of service or do it yourself or set up a script.
Okay. Now, if you do go the UTXO route, you bet you then if you do misspell Planet Cable, then you're really screwed. There's no way to overwrite that.
No, you have to then put a new record update that then overrides the prior. But each one of those is an on-chain transaction. So you're spending for a new transaction every time you have to make a change.
Oh, but cool. But you could just overwrite it though.
Yeah, because the protocol says, look at the most recent one and consider that the most valid. Even though those old misspelled ones are still there, you can never erase them.
Yeah.
But the protocol says,
okay,
just look at the last one as the authority.
Yeah, that's really cool. Okay, so yeah, we wouldn't want to come in here and manually do this every 48 hours. So like you were saying, either you take it on chain, turn it into a UTXO, or you pay for a service, or you create your own service perhaps.
Yeah, well, I can, when I package spaces up for this, there's like a fabric relay or resolve command. You can build, there's also a publish command, fabric publish. You can build a cron job to do this like once a day or something like that. So it's not like you have to pay somebody to do it. So when I package this stuff up for Start9 distribution, I made sure that these tools were available in the, they're in a command line way. So it's not the most friendly, but they're there to be used. So, that's something that you just have to kind of take on initially for the folks that are interested, probably setting up a little cron job to do it for yourself so that things stay updated would be the easiest thing to do. But a lot of folks don't even want to get into that. I imagine what they call a pinning service, which would kind of do this for you, also would be a nice service. And I had one time with the old system set up, I had created a bit of a pinning service that people could subscribe to, but it kind of we changed some of the protocol around, so that kind of went by the wayside. So, but yeah, that's it. That's what I have for this week. Anything else that you want to cover?
Yeah, that's really neat. Just one quick question on the application or service that you were using to verify this Planet Cable. What's that?
Oh, it's the same thing. It's the cert relay. Is that what you're talking about here?
Yeah, this one. So where do we get this? This is not web-based. We can't go anywhere on Spaces Protocol and use this. We have to actually install or host something.
Yeah, so this is the subs program. And if you're a top-level space owner, well, if you're not a top-level space owner, then there's no value in using this. But if you are, then you can run this program, and it gives you an interface. I'll just show you what I've got here.
Yeah, so this must be my next step. I need to figure this part out.
Yeah, so you run this program, and it ties into your Spaces daemon, and it allows you to then manage the subname creation. So like I have Swifty, so I've created Jason at Swifty, and they're in the process of confirming right now. I created a commitment and did the proof set generation, so it handles all that stuff. So this is the subs program, and for your convenience, I packaged all this stuff up as one Spaces package on Start9. So on Start9, I have a Spaces package, and contains this CLI that we were looking at, this subspaces, and then even a version of the Nacho wallet for creating the subspace name script pub keys. And yeah, it creates it actually runs the cert relay for you, and the prover as a separate thread. So I put some work into making all this easy, because I want people to drop it in, start using it, start participating in the cert relay. The more people we have in the cert relay, the better, the more robust it is. And yeah, so hopefully when we get launched, people find this interesting and we'll start using it.
Yeah, it's really cool. So it's like every episode we have, I keep needing to run. I need to build a new machine and run Start 9 on it so that I could get this package.
Yeah, theoretically, you could do this with, just run it all on your own server if you want to do it by hand. But that, for folks that aren't into administrating Linux servers, it's probably a lot to ask. I eventually may try to convert this to Umbrel as well. But problem with Umbrel is it's not so easy to forward and serve things publicly. And parts of this you want to serve publicly, like the cert relay part. You want to make sure that it can be reached from the outside. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to do it this way, because it's Start9 makes it really easy to expose services to the broader internet without a whole lot of hassle. So anyway, yeah, we can talk about this more in a future episode as we get closer.
Yeah, great job on this. Great show. And I'll talk to you next time.
All right. Thanks a lot, Jason. Take care, everybody.
Thanks for watching, everybody.